we've been in e-commerce for over 20 years, and we've always been big proponents of lifecycle marketing. And that's like sure your audience knows, win back campaigns, second purchase campaigns, things that are triggered based on user behavior.
Classic.
The challenge that we kept running into, we had used direct mail and some of the work that we had done in the past with e-com retailers, and it worked really well, but it was super tedious. It had high friction. It was like exporting you were creating these manual segments, exporting a bunch of spreadsheets, trying to find a print house. You would send these giant batches of cards to people, and then you get more spreadsheets and have to try and do these matchbacks and figure out what the ROI was. And everything was just manual. And we're like, one, there's got to be a better way to do that. And then it kind of really started hitting us when, we built all these great lifecycle campaigns for these brands that we were working with. The relevancy was super dialed in. These were highly segmented audiences, great creative, great offers. And then you just see the email open rates at like sub 20% in a lot of cases. Email engagement is just getting harder and harder as everything goes to the promotions tab, or it's so cluttered that everybody just kind of ignores or deletes these emails. And we were doing all this great work, and we're like, but 80+% of the people aren't even seeing the message. And so that we did this at AutoAnything really successfully. And we do it for thousands of other retailers through PostPilot, is we just help ensure that message gets in front of this large percentage of customers that aren't ever seeing your message when you're trying to send it through email. And now with Facebook and the iOS updates just really kind of crippling people's Facebook performance in a lot of cases, there's just a strong appetite to find an unsaturated channel that's cost effective and still has the potential to drive high ROI. And we're just seeing that over and over again with our customers.
Another reason I was very excited to have you on the show was literally just last week, I had a conversation with someone we're working with about we should try doing something a little bit less on the digital side, and let's open up to some new areas. So, when we find out that you're coming on the show, this is great. I'm just going to send this to them and then they'll listen. So can you walk me through like how it works, and then why you guys believe that it's obviously a very significant channel to be trying outside of the traditional? Because everyone always goes like, all right, email, Facebook, Instagram, social, all that fun stuff. So what's the process like?
Sure. So I think we believe that just in this world of digital overload, where everyone's getting bombarded with all kinds of digital messages that are fleeting, they're forgotten about in an instant if you even notice them. You just need to create these more tangible and deeper relationships with your customers. And also, as customer acquisition costs continue to increase, as competition continues to increase, you need to be ensuring that you're developing brand affinity, you're getting second and third and subsequent purchases from customers. Because if you can't increase your LTV and your competitors can, they're always going to be able to outbid you on the customer acquisition side. Mm-hmm. So we see typically customers for PostPilot are coming in, they're setting up some pretty simple campaigns, and we'll actually do it all for you if you want. But typical kind of win back campaign where customer goes a certain amount of time without repurchasing, trigger a personalized card to go out to them with an offer to come back. Abandoned cart. So you can say, if they don't respond to my email abandoned cart message within a certain period of time, hit them with a postcard, because they're much more likely to actually see it and then act on it. So those are some of the basic campaigns, but you've got VIP campaigns. Let's acknowledge those customers that are really driving the business, the ones that are purchasing over a certain amount of dollars or over a certain amount of transactions. Let's do something really delightful and engaging for those customers that keeps them loyal and keeps them coming back.
So is it safe to assume the way that you would trigger things is relatively similar to how you would do an email campaign? So, like you mentioned, you have an abandoned cart. So after a while, if they haven't opened the email, then you would essentially trigger sending them a postcard?
Exactly. So we like to say we're like the Klaviyo of direct mail. It's as easy to it's as easy to create these campaigns and flows as it is an email campaign. You have you can define the segments the same way you do in your email, in your ESP. You can set the triggers the same way you do in your ESP, and it has that one-to-one personalization. So it's not like you're sending giant batches of cards. It's like as soon as customer A meets the criteria you've set, just like it would fire off an email at that time, it'll fire off a personalized postcard at that time.
So since you mentioned Klaviyo, what is there an integration process so that they, those types of platforms speak to each other so that, like, okay, they didn't open an email, so now it's our turn to trigger something?
Exactly right. So we integrate with your e-commerce platform like Shopify. We'll integrate with Klaviyo. So one, that makes it super easy to segment your customers because we have kind of the data around the transactions and the customers. And then it makes it really easy to trigger it when they meet that criteria. And to your point, because we're also integrated with Klaviyo, we can even say if they don't open the email, if they don't open your Klaviyo email, then send the postcard. So it's truly incremental revenue and profits that you're generating.
Okay. So did you use this at AutoAnything?
Yeah, with great success. So especially with our Jeep site, for example, these are customers that are typically working on builds. It's not a one and done type purchase where they bought their floor mat and they never need anything again for their car. These are people that are building out their Jeep and they're accessorizing it. And so understanding what Jeep, we could personalize the card based on what Jeep we know they have, send a personalized card to them and help get them back and making those subsequent purchases, ensure that we're top of mind and we're the ones that are getting those subsequent purchases versus our competition is tremendously valuable because same reason, customer acquisition cost for that customer is super high. So if we're not doing everything we can to keep them coming back and securing those subsequent purchases, we're in trouble.
So how are you tracking the ROI on postcards?
Sure. So because we're integrated with the e-commerce platform, we also know when that card was sent and when that customer comes back and makes another purchase. So we track it kind of two ways, similar to Klaviyo does, how Klaviyo does. We know when they got the card and if they went on to make a subsequent purchase. We also have coupon tracking. So if you include a specific code on the card, it will identify if that code was used and attribute it that way as well.
Okay. So does it generate its own code per person? Or is it like one code that you do per campaign kind of thing?
Yeah. So in the past, it was one code per campaign and it would just look unique. But it's probably the top requested feature is the single use coupon code. And I'm happy to say that we're going to be releasing that in just about a week from now. So hopefully by the time this airs, it will be live and it's gonna be awesome.
I knew I'd get something good out of this one.
Yeah, be an awesome feature.
Nice. So very curious about this one. What are postcard best practices?
Sure. So we like to say, take the email campaigns that have started performing well for you and start there and pivot them to postcards so that you can reuse a lot of the same kind of segmentation that you've come up with, the same even creative that you've come up with, but get the incremental revenue from the customers that aren't engaging with your email campaigns. There's just so much money being left on the table if you're just relying on email to get that message out, that this just generates that incremental revenue. And that's a great starting point. But we also have the kind of pre-configured segments, kind of like I was describing, from abandoned carts to win back campaigns if they go a certain amount of time without repurchasing, to second purchase campaigns. So we got purchase number one. How are we going to get them to come back and make purchase number two? Or VIP campaigns. So again, acknowledge somebody that in a really memorable way who's one of our most loyal customers. We did that with AutoAnything as well, where we actually have new technology that creates handwritten cards as well. It actually writes it out with real ink, real pen on stationery, personalized in a handwritten envelope and stamp. And we would say, once customer buys, their fifth part from us, let's send a personal note to them, like on stationery, signed by one of our head salesperson and for that business. And the response is just so great. People just value that so much. It's such a surprising experience.
That's a very nice, like, personalized way to kind of connect. Because I agree, like, you see that stuff a lot with like companies that will kind of create just like a hey, thanks thing, but it's just like this flyer. And those I always see too, like, especially with email, just those I guess it's not handwritten, but like the letter that almost seems like it came from the owner is always really interesting. What kind of level of personalization can you get with this kind of stuff?
Sure. So you can use merge fields like the way you would do in an email campaign. So insert their name or insert a product that they purchased and things like that. You can also do it through segmentation. So if we know that we're targeting only people with a Jeep Wrangler JK, let's insert that into the message. And so it feels like it was really written for them. Same thing with postcards. We could say these are only going to people with a Wrangler JK. That's the picture that we're going to show on the front of the card.
Is AutoAnything still a client, or because you sold it, did they let you go like across the board?
No, it works. So that is
they're keeping it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So all right, so we got one future feature coming out. What else is working down the pipeline that you're kind of willing to toss a little breadcrumb at? Sure.
There's a lot on the roadmap, and I won't commit on timing on a handful of things because I know our CTO would kill me if I did that publicly. But definitely one of the biggest features that we're focusing on over the next couple quarters is a lot more integrations. So rolling out more integrations for a lot of the digital marketing CRM type tools that you're already using today, from SMS platforms to CDPs and other customer data platforms and customer relationship management programs that allow you to just aggregate data from a lot of different sources, segment it, and create personalized marketing based on that user behavior and transactional history. So we want to be a part of that stack. When you have kind of all your core channels, Postcards is going to be one of those channels.
So I'm going to guess let me rephrase this. I know what that argument I had with that seller last week. Their argument was like postcards, like people just get them and then they throw them away. Obviously, I know that if you follow best practices and you can make it stand out, that's obviously a very different scenario. But I'm sure that you get that comment a lot. So what is kind of your rebuttal to that?
Sure. So, and it's definitely something that we'll hear. And it's really the email inbox is what's so crowded right now. That's where you're not even reading. Yeah. You're just clicking delete and ignoring most of what comes in. Your actual physical mailbox, that used to be where all the junk mail went, but now you're not getting nearly the same number of pieces of mail that you were in the past. And when you see a card from a brand that you actually recognize and have done business with, the read rates, I mean, there's been studies that show it's darn close to 100%. It doesn't mean that every person's going to act on that card. Of course not. But think about when you're going through your mail, you're not typically just taking the mail out of the box and throwing it all into the garbage without looking at it. You're flipping through it, right? You're seeing what's relevant to you and what isn't. So at a minimum, you're flipping through it. You're seeing a card from a brand that you recognize and have done business with, and you're processing that message, which is more than you can say about a lot of the online ads and emails that you're receiving. So if you're at least getting that message in front of that customer, you've got a good shot. And our results speak for themselves. To your point, when you're following best practices, these businesses are getting 10, 20x ROAS on these campaigns pretty consistently. So it does work. And it's also cheaper than you think, because with costs, with CPCs going up so much, I mean, a postcard is...
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. Postcards are fixed costs, right? It's the price of a stamp. So you're not you're not paying jacked up rates because competition is increasing. Your CPCs aren't going up because, oh, I want to target this coveted audience of 18 to 45-year-old females or whatever it is, or because I'm sending around Valentine's Day, I'm not going to pay more. The price of a stamp is fixed, so it's typically less than the cost of a click.
That is a very sound argument, and I can't wait to send this episode to the person I was talking to. Maybe just think of that. So now I'm like, I had a question and I forgot what it was now. So the example you're talking about, obviously you still use it at AutoAnything.
Sure.
That's a 9-figure plus company, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you believe it can still work for your smaller companies that are, maybe still in the 7-figure range?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question. Our target customer, our ideal customer is typically 5 million plus in annual revenue.
Mm-hmm. We
can work with companies that are smaller than that. And we do work with kind of low 7 figures as well. But the sweet spot, the sweet spot starts to happen around then because you've got enough of a customer base and enough transactional data and history that you can create some really strong segments, and you've got enough volume that you can really start to move the needle. So typically 7-figure plus, once you start getting into kind of that mid to high 7-figure range, then you can do some really, really interesting things as well.
I can also see how it might get a little out of hand, right? So like you'd sometimes, especially with emails, like I know some people that send emails like 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm like, okay, you're the reason that I can't send emails to anyone.
Yeah.
So what do you say is like the proper amount to be sending someone a postcard?
Sure. So we're not suggesting that you send a card every day or even every week. It's when specific events are triggered typically, or when you have big events that you want to promote. So big holiday sale events that you might have. Valentine's Day is coming up, or Mother's Day, Father's Day, Black Friday. Those are key events. You need to make sure that your message isn't getting lost among the millions of other other marketing messages that are being sent to your customers. Those are great times to send. And then you've got the triggered events. So when a customer has purchased something and you expect them to buy again at a certain point, consumable type products are great fits for postcard marketing, because you know that I just sold somebody lipstick, and we have a big cosmetics brand, Boom, on our platform, and they know that when their customer goes 35 days without repurchasing a new lipstick, like that's gone beyond the expected lifespan of that product, and we need to get them back. The retention's typically good, and the profits are so high on that product that if they risk losing that customer defecting, the value that they lose if that customer forgets to come back and buy again is tremendous. And when you do get them to come back and buy again, it's just almost pure profit at that point.
So what's like the coolest thing you've seen someone do with the platform so far, where you were like, I didn't even think about doing that?
I think that I was looking at one customer today. It's a shapewear company. So kind of like Skims, the Kardashian brand, but an alternative to that. Mm-hmm. And they've sent 100 different campaigns, which is a lot when you think about the number of events, or a lot of them are automated. So that's a lot. And they were doing. One thing that they did was they came up with their own kind of marketing event where kind of like their Amazon Prime Day kind of thing. So they created their own event and used postcards to announce it to all of their customers. I thought that was really interesting. And one of the other features that we released recently that I'm kind of surprised has taken off to the extent that it has. I guess I shouldn't be, but we released QR codes, and that's been just massive, where people are sticking their QR codes on the cards and making it really easy. I think with COVID in particular, and everybody got
COVID helped.
Exactly. Everybody got so used to doing it.
COVID rescued the QR code.
Yes, totally. So seeing a ton of that, and people doing it in interesting ways, just sending them to special landing pages based on the card that they're getting. It's been really neat.
So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I obviously really appreciate having you on the show. This is that awesome time where you get to shine and tell everyone where they can find out more about you and PostPilot.
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Epstein, Epstein1, I think is my LinkedIn handle. And then you can email me, michael@postpilot.com, and visit us at postpilot.com. We have really a done for you service. We make it effortless to launch the campaign. We have a team of professional designers on our team that will even do the creative for you. We have account managers that understand ecom. That's their background, and they know the strategies that are going to work. It's basically like, we'll do it all for you. And I'll send you a link too that you can throw in the show notes so that you can even get the first campaign for free. Perfect. Because we know when it'll work, and we don't want to
confident.
Yeah. So if we know it'll work for you, we'll show it to you for free, and then we know you're going to come back and keep sending.
Perfect. Michael, big thanks. Thanks for being on the show. Everyone who tuned in, of course, thank you as well. Make sure you subscribe on whichever podcast platform you prefer, or just head over to ecomshow.com and you can see it all there too. But per usual,